Welcome to this episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Good. Today, I'm once again joined by Gabriel Reilich, a visionary storyteller, strategist, and head of content and creation at Upworthy, whose work has helped redefine what uplifting media can be. This episode is the second part of my conversation with Gabe, where we go even deeper and challenge one of today's biggest misconceptions, that kindness is somehow weak or superficial in the digital age. We discuss why authentic stories of decency don't just restore our faith in humanity, they mobilize it. And we unpack how the Upworthy team transforms everyday acts of kindness into contagious, purpose-driven storytelling that sparks real-world change. So let's dive into part 2 of my conversation with Gabriel Reilich. Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast, where we explore the stories, strategies, and insights of thought leaders who inspire us to think differently and lead better. Through candid conversations and expert perspectives, we dive into the challenges, breakthroughs, and practical lessons that shape exceptional leadership. Let's talk about how Good People seeks to combat the mean world syndrome. And the book addresses this, caused by exposure to negative news. How do you hope these positive narratives help leaders and readers shift their worldview?
Yeah, so the mean world syndrome is a media theory coined by George Gerbner in the 70s. And it basically says that the information that you digest, the media that you consume, can affect your worldview, which seems like pretty true on the face value of it. And it can have real physiological effects too. So if you're constantly being shown reasons to think that people are untrustworthy, that they're violent, that the world is a dangerous place, you are going to start thinking that people are untrustworthy, violent, and the world is a dangerous place. Now, that is partially true, right? I mean, nobody would say, no, go out there, everything's fine, and never pay attention to what's going on around you. But the converse is also true. There is a lot of good stuff happening too that doesn't command the same attention, like we've talked about. The danger that comes, that I was thinking about is like, okay, well, if you start digesting that information and it colors your belief, and then you start moving about the world in a way of distrust and anger, then it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more people who start moving around like that, the more people who see enemies everywhere, the more enemies they're going to be, because they're going to start moving around the world in that way. We see that happening among people where they see danger at every corner, versus the alternative, which of course needs to be balanced with being pragmatic and real, which is saying, okay, I want to be conscious about digesting an alternative proof points about people, that there are good things happening among individuals, between individuals, in big ways and in small. I'm going to let that color my understanding of people. And then when I carry that out into the world, I'm going to interact based on that feeling. And it doesn't need to be so clinical. It's genuinely a feeling that you get inside of you and that you don't have control over. I think a lot of people can probably identify when they've been really stressed or bad things are happening and they get cut off in traffic, and you may flip the lid as a result. Versus maybe something great just happened. You had a really good interaction with somebody, you get cut off in traffic, it doesn't bother you. Or who knows, maybe you even slow down and let the person in, right? So that's like kind of like a small way of looking at it. But I think inviting that worldview in a conscious way and to let it have unconscious effects can be quite important.
I've seen that as well, and how the internet really distorts reality towards fear, but positive stories can change that perception. And it's not about ignoring hardship, like you mentioned, but about restoring faith that kindness is the rule, not the exception.
Right.
So let's dig deeper. What was it like collecting these stories? Because you conducted hundreds of interviews after reading thousands of responses. Talk to us about the process and maybe share what was the most emotional or unexpected revelation from those conversations.
The process it was a long one, right? You know, we would ask a question, tell us about a moment of kindness you experienced from a stranger. Who's that teacher you had that changed your life? What's a small thing that somebody did that restored your faith in humanity a bit? And we would get thousands of responses, and we poured through every single one of them, looking for a story that left us wanting to hear more. Because, you know, what we didn't want to do was to make a book that was a collection of Instagram comments. We wanted to use it as a way to learn about people and to give them the opportunity to share their lived experiences. And so when we did that, we would then reach out to people, tell them what we were working towards, asked if they wanted to be a part of it. A lot of people said yes. A fair amount of people never responded. And so we kept working and working until we had, enough to create a 60,000 word book. And I think the most unexpected thing that came from it was just realizing how much people really have in common in terms of A, the desire to help people, and B, the desire to share that experience and not let it kind of like slip away without anyone ever knowing about it, because they know it's important. We can feel it. There's a weight to it. And I think that surprised me, that with some of the really honest and raw storytelling that is in this, that sense of wanting to share with the world didn't really dissipate, because it's a scary thing, putting stuff out there into the world, especially now. But people were really enthused about the idea of committing these onto paper.
And the sheer vulnerability and honesty surprised me as well of these stories, and really looking at it from the emotional core, which wasn't just about the act, but about the courage to share the pain and the connection that followed from some of these stories in the book. Was there a particular story that really connected well with you, or resonated the most with you in the book?
There are certain ones that really stick out, but what sticks out the most is the collective, how the individual parts have created a more profound whole. The entire experience of going through this and having it as a resource, because there's like a resonance of being exposed to this belief, whenever you pick up the book, whenever you open to any random page, that this notion there is goodness and human connection and love in the world has a lasting effect and a compounding effect. So I would say the sum is greater than its parts, which is another thing that was a little unexpected to me, and that I'm glad that it is. And then there are, of course, stories that stay with me. The story that closes out the book by a man named John, I think, perfectly illustrates that notion that we've been talking about what it means for a small thing to have the most significant impact on someone's worldview. And it's the story of a guy who was in the military, and he was traveling back to his base after visiting home on a long road trip, and a chance encounter with a guy at a cafe, and a short interaction led him down a road, quite literally, that gave him a different way of looking at his life and his place in it, and helped him navigate some incredibly difficult things in the future. And he could go back to this as a well of support, and it started from such an unexpected place. And so that's a story that really sticks with me.
I love so many of the stories in there, and you're right, the collective whole is really impactful. And you have longer stories and some spotlight stories. One spotlight story that stood out for me, I was on a weekly date night with my 5-year-old having fun chatting and eating. When I received the bill, another table had paid it and said to tell me that I'm a really good mom. Just, simple stories like that you really feel uplifted by, and realize there's good in the world out there, that people are noticing things that are happening, and people that are doing it well.
It's a great thing to see, even if it's small. And I'm reminded that I actually had something like that happen to me the other day. And I went through this whole process, and I can't remember if I've been the beneficiary of one of those like pay it forward moments, but I was in line at In-N-Out Burger, and in the drive through and pulling in, the lines there are unbelievable. Very, very long, very, can be kind of an arduous journey to get your burger. But I was pulling in, and I was in the intersection, and another lady was trying to come in, make a left, and she was going to ended up blocking the intersection, and it was going to cause problems. I saw this, so I reversed. I let her come in front of me so that the intersection wouldn't be blocked and she wouldn't be like hung out there to dry. And she was very appreciative. I kind of forgot about it, but it's nice. And then when I got finally to pick up my order, which was a double and a pup patty for my dog, because I always make sure to get my dog a burger patty when we go there, the person told me, "Oh, the car in front of you paid for this," and I was like, "What? That's so cool." And then I felt bad though, because I was so like blown away by it. I was, wait, I should pay for the meal. By the time I was driving away, I should pay for the meal behind mine. I've broken the chain at once, but it was still a wonderful thing to see.
No, that's great. And I've had opportunities like that as well. The only time I've kind of paused briefly, but I did the right thing, was when I got my order paid for in the Starbucks line. I came up and they said, well, someone else paid for yours. Do you want to pay it forward? It turned out to be a party of 7, and it was like $40 bill. And okay, it's testing my resolve here, but you know what? I'm doing it anyway, and hopefully they have a better day as a result. And the other one that really stood out was this employee of a dentist's office. It was an awful work environment. She really should have left a lot sooner, but this chance encounter with someone at Costco, in the Costco parking lot. that I guess she had a parking lot, or she had a basket full of groceries that they all spilled. She helped her pick those up. And it stated in the book, if I hadn't encountered a kindness that threw the dentist's cruelty into stark relief, I would have stayed in that office for another 30 years too, but I didn't. And I have her to thank for that. So once again, small act of kindness that had long lasting impact that really made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's just proof point after proof point that these have real effects on people and real lasting impact. The other thing is like, it's one thing to know that, okay, I can have this impact on somebody, but there are real physiological benefits as well to engaging in the world this way. Doing something for someone else is good for that person if they're receptive to it. You never want to like force help onto somebody who doesn't want to receive it, both for their sanity and yours. But if they are receptive and the time is right, then it's a very good thing, uplifting thing. It makes you feel better in the process. It releases oxytocin in the brain. It's been shown. These are things that have been studied by UCLA neuroscientists that show the effect of doing good. But I think the most unexpected thing is that somebody witnessing that happening also benefits. So think about the people at the Costco parking lot. You know, maybe the person turned around from getting a $1.50 hot dog, praise be to the Costco hot dog, and saw this happening, and that made them feel great to see, oh wow, look at this person helping somebody else. That's nice. And that's kind of the hope with the book too, is that since there is a benefit to the observer of kindness and decency between people, that this book puts the reader in the position of that observer. Obviously, you're not doing a good thing for somebody else by picking up this book and reading it, but you are doing a good thing for yourself. You are treating yourself with kindness, and you are exposing yourself to stuff that has a mood elevating quality to it.
Great advice. And is there any other advice that you have for listeners wanting to create similar positive impacts in their daily lives? They can witness it and see it and hopefully do it as a result, but anything else that you've seen that's effective in getting them to, once again, infuse some more positivity?
I mean, I think about your audience and in the context of leadership. I think one thing that this experience of building the Upworthy Instagram channel and other channels has taught me is the importance of really seeing people, seeing them as people with their own lived experiences, struggles, things that are happening. And when you recognize that and you engage in a way where you're coming from that place and you want to learn about people and you want to be there for them in a way that you can be, or at least show curiosity, that can have a real positive impact on an organization. Now, in the context that I think of like the organization of humanity as a whole. If we can start doing these little changes at scale, they start small, but then maybe it scales up, it can have a change on society as a whole, how we interact with each other, how we see each other. In a business or a company or an organization, whatever it may be, bringing that in, having the opportunity for people to share their stories, their experiences, if they want to. Nothing's worse than forcing people to be like, all right, time to be vulnerable and talk about stuff. But to recognize when people may be struggling and to see how you can help can be really meaningful, and it strengthens the bonds within the organization. So my advice would be to move around with your eyes open, pay attention to what you're seeing among the people that you interact with. In my job, I interact with people who are on the front lines of social media every day. And I put it in those terms because it really is a battle out there. The amount of things that are being shared, what you're exposed to. And so I try to be attentive to the struggles that people may be undergoing as a result of that, and encouraging openness to talk about it, to take time away from it as necessary, and for people's well-being to be paramount over just day-to-day goals. Because if you're just too focused on that, then the long-term change that you're looking to make will suffer as well.
And to really focus on starting small, it doesn't have to be large acts of kindness. Read someone warmly if you're the leader or you're an employee. Encourage someone, help your neighbor, write a supportive comment online, or just be more cognizant of when they need to be recognized or appreciated. Because I don't think anyone comes home from work these days saying, I was just too appreciated on my job. I got too much appreciation. It's those little acts make a big difference and can really help with engagement, can help
Right.
with productivity and all the things that you want to measure. But it first starts with that.
Yeah, Charles, you said it. The appreciation is huge because people are out there, they're doing jobs, they're struggling to get things done. And in the context of KPIs and deliverables and quarterly results or whatever metrics may get lost, that, okay, behind each one of those is somebody who fought to make something happen or is fighting. And I think recognizing people in the moment, after the moment, or even bringing up a sometime in the past and being like, you remember when you did that thing? That was really great. Anyway, I was just thinking about it. It's going to leave people with a positive boost and probably make it more likely that they're going to want to continuing try to make a difference for the organization as a whole. And it's not meant to be manipulative in any way. It's just meant to be caring about people. Burnout is a real thing, no matter what you're doing. And knowing that people that you see, sometimes the folks that you work with, you see more than your spouse or your kids or whatever it may be. And to know that they, you have their back, that you see them and that you celebrate their successes and not just come at them for results, I think is an important approach to take because it has long-term benefits.
And also, I see too with leaders, with everyone, it's difficult for us to receive kindness and appreciation. A lot of people deflect it. Like if you were to give me a compliment, Gabe, most people's reactions were like, oh no, Gabe, I don't deserve it. You're the best, or you did this. It's almost like rejecting a gift that was given to you. And you wouldn't do that if someone gave you a birthday present. The best response I found from talking to so many thought leaders and experts is just to say thank you and then to be quiet. Don't try to deflect it, receive it, and know that it was coming from an authentic place, and then move forward as a result versus trying to minimize it.
I think receiving things graciously is a skill as well. And I think at the same time, you have to recognize that words are words, actions are actions. And so if you are constantly, God, but I give my employees and the people that I work with such positive feedback all the time. I tell them that they're the best. Well, maybe the telling isn't the problem. It's what comes after that. The how that appreciation is reflected. And is there any dissonance between the actions and the words? The words are important because it's where it starts, right?
Absolutely. And an important point I think to make here too is action doesn't require a platform. It just requires presence and care. So you don't need a platform. You don't need to be an influencer. You just need to show presence and care with another human being and share some kindness with them. Now, I'm sure readers have shared how these stories have reached them in pivotal moments. Are there any interesting fan responses since the book's been released that really moved you?
Yeah. I have been keeping an eye on the reception of the book and seeing the reviews that people are sharing, and they've been universally great. People saying, oh, this came to me at the right moment, or I really enjoy this. But then there's some stuff that I've read that I'm like, oh my God, like I never would have thought that this would be happening. And I read somebody left a note about how they read this. They would read stories from this book with their friend who was undergoing cancer treatment, and it wasn't successful too, the treatment. And so there was only so much time that they had, and that they took a lot of comfort from hearing these stories about people being good to each other. And to know that these experiences just existed in people's minds and then started out as a kernel on an Instagram comment and then turned into the book, then can be something that sits with people at such a important, intense part of their life. I couldn't believe it never crossed my mind that people would turn to it for such a source of comfort in that way. I mean, I'd hoped that it would be a source of comfort. And as somebody who has been through that experience with people who are close to me, it really, really struck a serious chord.
I know friends who have read it. Even one said to me, which I thought was profound, is it's restored my faith in humanity. So well done.
Yeah, well, that's the old internet saying, faith in humanity restored, right? So
Right.
if we can get more people to say that, then I guess we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. If you could add one more story to a future edition, what kind of prompt would you use to solicit?
Well, first I would say the story of human decency is always being written. So I would just encourage people to keep moving about the world in a way that invites more of these stories, because we need them. We need them badly, and we need the actions that lead to them among people. So I would say that this is a living and breathing thing that is being compiled here. And we have so many stories waiting in the wings that could fill any number of editions. And that's a really wonderful thing to see. From a very literal aspect of a question that I would like to ask, I want to know from people. I love the idea of the intersection of the ordinary and the extraordinary. And I think that one of the things I'm fascinated by is when people own something that seems really innocuous, that you would never think had meaning to them, but it means the world to them. What is that thing that you have in your possession that means the world to you, but no one would ever know? You're not going to be like, Rolex watch. You're going to be like, this rock I found on a beach with my dad when I was a kid, and go on from there. Or here is a note that somebody left me once, or whatever it may be. And so I think we all have those things surrounding us that have been imbued with special meaning because of the history and story behind it. And I would love to learn more about them.
That's a great prompt. I'd like to know the answer to that as well.
You got one? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's a great question, and I thinking back, there's a few things from distant relatives that I have received, and one of them is just a plain compass. But at the time of my life, it was given to me, was a pivotal moment in my upbringing, and it really meant a lot to me, and it gave me a direction to follow, and how the story was set by this individual that you always want to go toward true north, and this will always lead you there. And it just really connected well. But people looking at it be like, okay, this is just a old, probably broken now compass. What's its significance and why do you still keep it? And the story and the person that gave it to me made the difference and really made it impactful for me.
Beautiful.
If you could envision Upworthy's impact in the next decade, what bold goals would you prioritize?
Another great question, Charles. I would love for Upworthy to be put out of business. I would like for there not to be a need to have reinforcement of the notion that people are good, because it becomes so obvious that we're good to each other. And like, I realize that that's a bit of a pipe dream, but if there were some grand aspirational goal out there, it would be to be like, there's no longer a need for this because it has become so intrinsic to the way that we view the world. And we see it in action so much that the kind of Upworthy sensibility is just how so many people are interacting with each other, despite their differences, despite whatever it may be. So that would be nice. In a kind of more realistic way, I would love to figure out, and I'm focused on how to take this sensibility offline. We're in a time where people are desperate for comfort, for connection in a way that feels real. It's very much needed. And to think about how to take that feeling that people have gotten on our website and our socials and now on the book, and how to bring that even more into the real world and into a shared experience. So if 10 years from now, it was a common thing that there was a kind of way to connect with people in the real world on a small person to person scale, I would consider that a huge success.
Let's move it to the present day. What's one small action that could start building that today for the people listening to this podcast?
Pay attention to the impulse that you have inside of you to do good and to be there for someone. I think a lot of times we have that kind of like gnawing sense, like I should really give that person a call, or I should maybe check in on so-and-so, or maybe you're walking down the street and you may have the impulse to see, does that person, what's going on there? Should I ask if they need some help? Follow through on it. That doesn't mean forcing your desire to help people. If you ask somebody and they're like, I'm good, that's fine. If you call a friend, they think it's like, hey, why are you calling? You're like, I just wanted to say hi. Nothing comes from it. That's also fine. But it starts from a place where you follow through on that. I think we all have it in us, that kernel to like be there for people, to check in on them. And starting from that, following through on that feeling is a great place to start. And, it requires just taking a little bit of time to check in with yourself and to be, what should I do? And I would say when you do give someone a call and have a conversation with them, it's worth 10,000 memes shared through DMs. It hits different. And I think a lot of times, especially now, we think that we're having a shared experience and we think that we're there with each other because, we shared this funny reel we saw or this funny thing, but it's different than just taking a little bit of an extra step to check in, a way that requires a little bit more of an effort, taking yourself out of the comfort zone of DMs and into the world of phone calls.
You are absolutely right. You really value that more than ever because we've been relegated to DMs, to memes, to texts, when really picking up the phone or making a visit to someone makes a huge impact.
who knows what it'll lead to? And it's just a longer lasting feeling too. When you share a funny thing on the internet, it's awesome. It's great. It creates a connection, but it dissipates really fast. Kind of like how watching a 30-second video was going to stay with you not as long as watching a 90-minute movie that has a significant message behind it. You're going to sit on it. You're going to ruminate with it. The same goes with interactions between people. Fleeting interactions, I think you sit with them for less amount of time than if you were to actually spend time with somebody and face to face.
Well, thank you so much, Gabe, for joining me today and for sharing your insights and proving that even a single story can inspire real change. Remind our listeners how they get in contact with you and learn more about your work and purchase your best-selling book.
You can find Upworthy on all social platforms at Upworthy, and you can visit upworthy.com and see our stories, sign up for the newsletter, get them into your mailbox if you don't want to have to visit a website. And the book is called Good People, Stories from the Best of Humanity, and it's available at all major retailers online and off.
Thank you, Gabe, once again for joining me. And thank all of you for listening. And let's continue amplifying the good in our circles. If you have a story to share, Upworthy and I would love to hear from you. Until next time, though, keep seeking and sharing the best of humanity. I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. If it has, I ask you to share it with someone who would also benefit from it. If you've been enjoying and gaining knowledge from this podcast, then subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find all the previous episodes of the podcast and additional learning resources. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify and leave up to a 5-star review.